Brian, welcome, Brian.
What's going on, Shreya?
I love having my buddies on here, but it's probably going to be crazy. And it's like we just yap at each other for 25 minutes, but
Well, that's a good thing.
they have to deal with it. So, I mean, I wanted to just get right into it and get into where you started and how you started ProStar.
Sure. So where I started ProStar was 2016, 17.
Mhm.
Calgary, before I became a plumbing technician, I was working in commercial electric for a company called Western Electric here in Calgary. It was my fourth year. I just wrote my exam, passed my journeyman ticket, but I just felt like there was a huge gap I was missing, and I wasn't happy with my work. Just like, I'm a laborer. You're a commercial construction guy. It's shut your mouth, climb up the ladder, drill those holes, hang those pipes, take lunch at this time, take a break at this time, be back here 6 a.m. And it was realistically, I got the feeling that for the rest of my life, I was going to be a laborer if I didn't make a choice soon. And what happened in Calgary was we had like 100-year flood. So basically, a flood came in, we had a whole bunch of water, and it basically wrecked all the communities along the river line in downtown Calgary, flooded parkades, buildings, devastated communities.
Wow.
At the time, I was thinking, I'm like, I need to do something else. And my old man was always a plumber. He was a one truck plumber, super old school, and he's always like, get a trade, just get a trade, get a ticket. No matter what, when you get that ticket, you'll be getting paid that wage. So you can always go back to it. When earlier in my life, he tried to get me into, becoming a plumber when I was like 18 out of high school. And I was like, that's the last thing I want to do is be like you, be miserable, wake up, just like old school, right? Like, oh, I hate
So you pick Sparky instead. Makes
yeah. So
sense.
then I went to see a course, and then I went and got my electrical ticket because I was bartending for a while. I was working at a radio station doing promotions, and it was just dead end jobs, right? So during my bartending days, that's when I went to school and got my electrical ticket. But once those floods hit, I was actually just talking to a guy when I was bartending, and he's like, "Hey, basically, why don't you come and give it a try? We have an HVAC company, and we do some plumbing with it." So I basically just quit being an electrician, got hired on with this company, and we were doing all brand retrofits for furnaces that were damaged from the flood. So we were just basically in and out of the houses, just replacing them. And so I
Hmm.
remember my first day, I go to their shop and they're like, "Hey, this is Rob, and this is Sean. These are two guys you're working with." And I'm thinking like, okay. And Rob comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, I just want to let you know I'm an ex-crack addict. I'm clean and sober now. I'm happy to have you on our team." And I was kind of taken back a
Perfect.
bit. And I'm like, what the hell am I walking into? And then, day one, we show up at a house and basically we rip the furnace out. We start doing the ducting and they're teaching me how to do the duct work and run all the vents. So I started on that. And then within 3 months, one of the supervisors came and they're like, "Hey, man, you're actually pretty good. You're showing up. You're getting all the work done pretty early. We're actually going to make you a supervisor of a new construction area that we have in Calgary called Evanston." So basically, I was doing all the finals, putting all the registers in, and I was like, "This is not for me," right?
Mm.
Then from there, I left RPs and I got a job with a service company here in Calgary. And right away, they sat me in a room and they're like, "Just watch these videos. This is how we do our service process." And it only took me like 5 minutes to be like, "You're telling me that you guys are going to pay me money to go into a house, have a conversation with the client, figure out what their needs and wants are. Then I do that, and then there could be like some performances bonuses attached to it." And they're like, "That's exactly what we're telling you." So from there, I got trained up in about a month, rode along with a guy, and then they sent me on my own to do my first service call, and it was a landlord tenant in an
Oh,
area.
wow.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, we're sending you're the new guy here. Get the shit call first, right?
They're like
Apparently,
hazing you. Yeah.
yeah. They send me this call, and I go in and I look at it, and I build my options. I talk to the landlord on the phone, everything I found, everything I think that could be enhanced, and then ended up selling my first job for like $8,900. And as soon as I sold the job, my iPad just started going off on Slack. So Slack was the messaging board that the dispatch in the office would use to communicate to the guys, and we can ask other text questions if we got in trouble. And right away, one of the dispatchers, Dermot's like, "Holy fuck, man, you absolutely smashed this." And I'm like, "What?" And
Yeah.
he's like, "Dude, that's huge. That's your first sale." And I'm like, "Okay." And I didn't really know the scope of what I did. I just thought hey, this is what you guys trained me to do. I went in the house and did it. So I stuck with that
Solid.
company for about 8 months, and I found that there's a lot of technicians. We go to the shop for the meetings, and techs would be like, "Oh, they're making us do this training again. We're not feeling. We have to fill out forms, and we have to do this and all these protocols, and you're only going to last here for 4 or 5 months." And I'm like, "What the hell?" I'm like, "This is the easiest job ever." So, so from there, they start teaching me some HVAC service, doing a lot more plumbing service and maintenance calls, and it just basically expanded my arsenal of communication with the client, but also started to learn how to do the work. So from there, I decided basically to just start my own company. So I went to school, got my ticket in plumbing, and then right away just jumped in head first, left that company, went to go do my own thing. And then I got my first shock of reality of like, oh my God, like how am I going to get the phone to ring? Right? How am I
Mhm.
basically structuring this? How am I going to find an employee? Like, why would some guy want to randomly work for me? And then surely we just started chipping away, and I talked to the old man. I'm like, well, why don't I basically just take over your old company that you had, and I'll start running all the calls. I'll run them from day to night. So started doing that, and then basically we started just growing, and that's when basically ProStar was born. When I was like, look, I got my own company now. I'm just going to run all the leads that you have through my company, right? So we have the advertising out. We were on Google. We were doing all the right things, sending mail outs, whatever need be. And then from there, ProStar was born. And from ProStar, I hired my first guy that I teamed up with, Darcy, who's now basically my right hand man, service manager, with me. And between us two, we just had this vision. We're like, hey, we can make something big out of this. And then now ProStar has exploded to where we're at today. We're basically, we have 14 employees. We're doing about 4 million in revenue. We're on pace to probably hit close to 4.3, 4.5. And it's basically just elevated us. But with that, it was, how do we structure it? How do I give the text that I felt everything I wasn't getting at the other companies, but able to
Mhm.
fast track? And with that came service MVP, came Rilla now, doing call by call, right? And it's able to structure it, because the first thing that was hard was when we first signed up with Service MVP, you're looking at a new organization and you have to structure your company again, right? So we're breaking it apart, doing everything that we taught them, what we thought was the right way and the correct way at first, introducing a new process, and then figuring out what is the smoothest way to roll it out.
Right.
And
Yeah.
what we discovered was we just got to fucking jump headfirst in, right?
And that's what you did. I remember.
Yeah, it was like I remember being at a conference, and someone basically gave me a dumbed down version of a script from Service MVP, and the guy was doing a ride along with one of his technicians, and the customer sat there, and the technician said, how much do you think this will cost? And the lady said to the guy, I don't know, I think it'll cost like maybe $15,000. And he's like, actually, you can add two zeros to that. And she's like, 100. He's, oh, I'm just joking. It's only $467, or total price of like 23,000, and the lady went for it. So based on
He's
one
bold
conversation,
for using that one. That one is usually the scariest and one of the more advanced ones. That's what he started with.
that's what he started with. And the guy was on the ride along,
Wow.
who was the owner of the company. He was sitting there and he was like, oh my God. He's like, and he's telling me this at a conference. So first thing I did, I'm like, who is this guy? Like, who is Joe Casera? Who's Service MVP? So right away, I got the number, connected, and right away, you were the first person I talked to. And I'm like, I need to know all the information. You guys gave me the information. I'm like, sign me up right now.
Right.
Right. So if it was communication based and it was that simple, right? I'm not saying it's simple, but if the communication went from there and the sale was what it was, and the conversation you had with the client, he was doing the guessing game, and that was the sale from it, and the owner was
Mhm.
shocked by it, then I'm like, okay, I need to talk to this company. I need to figure out what the heck they're doing that we're not. Like, what gap do I need to fill? And I need to start this process right now.
Most of our coaching clients come from technicians and comfort advisors. They are not from it's all referral, and it's a referral from the employees that did it at the last company. And now like they'll only do it that way. And we must become service MVP, or like a weird situation like that. We've tracked it and it's employees, which is so great because that's what we want. Like we want to sell ourselves to the guys in the field, that are going through the pains of the labor of working 10, 14 hours, going home and having nothing to show for it. is one of the most painful things that somebody in the trades could experience. And finally, getting something to show for it. And you went through that. And some things I took away from your story is that number one, you followed the demand, even though you got your electrical ticket, which I
Yeah.
love. You actually followed the demand, and a lot of people just stick with what they're comfortable and what they know, but you made a really bold decision there to do that, and to even go back to school and figure out more and put in the effort because you saw it there, that business mind, before technician mind. Second was you are like a chameleon. You're thrown something and you can adapt, right? And some of the absolute best owners that I've met are super moldable and adaptable. And they're, stubborn only in the right areas. But that's something a couple things I noticed about your story that could be lessons to other people is, follow the demand and be adaptable and moldable and look out for what's new in the market. Like, oh, this new AI product, instead of being scared of it, like maybe invest in that. Maybe
Yeah.
be ahead of everybody else. So what's your experience been with, because service MVP is like you have your repeatable sales process. I found that I use Rilla myself to like coach now. So what's your experience been with Rilla? Because like honestly too, if the guys have had issues with it, you could talk about that. Any success stories with it. So what's your honest feedback on Rilla?
Real has been the most transformative game changer outside of our processes because what it enabled us to do was to basically take a technician who already knows our process, who's going out in the field, right? And what it does is it basically breaks down their conversation with the client, lets them know what points they hit, what points they miss. But the benefit from it is that we don't look at it as like, oh, this AI is going to all of a sudden enhance us, right? Our processes already have to be dialed in. Real is like the icing on the cake, where it basically makes us be able to take our glasses off, a real clear view, and say, okay, Shreya, you went to this call. Here's how the conversation went. Everything went well in it, but where do you feel like we could have done better? And so we replay it with the text. We get them to listen to their calls. And at first with Rilla, when I introduced it to the team, it was like, they're like, I don't want this. I don't want to be spied on. Like it was like
Totally.
what do you mean it's gonna record our conversations? Like, I don't want this. It's gonna spy on us, right? But it's like everything in business. It's like, guys, this does nothing. Like you guys are worried on it for it's gonna spy when the real reality is what you should be worried about is how is this going to enhance your performance, which in turn increases revenue for the company, gives you guys higher bonuses, and then make sure that our customers are taken care of when it comes to the highest quality, reliability, health, and safety, right? So we were able to basically, once we got their minds to basically shift from, oh, well, I don't want to be spied on in the house, and like you guys are listening to the calls, and it's like the tool is not for that. The tool is to enhance your production and to enhance you guys' skills. So we can easily now with Rilla, in 5 minutes, I can send a brand new tech to a house who have trained up from Service MVP, who's graduated, put the script in there, and I can scrape that script in 5 minutes and identify where the gaps are, where they need to basically have a stronger conversation or handle an objection. Because before they'd get an objection, but they wouldn't realize that it was an objection that could be easily moved past. Like they'd just be like,
Totally.
I don't know if this seems like a lot of money. And they'd be like, yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm just going to pack my bags and I'm just going to leave now. Right. And the client's like, what the hell, dude? Like, I want you to do the job. I just had a question
Or a statement.
or a
Like,
statement. And if you can't overcome this part of the job, why would I hire you to look after and manage my project? You're going to let me down in that aspect. So
right.
basically allowed us to basically really zoom in with the technicians, help correct these little things where whether it be a confidence thing or they're a little bit timid with customers, but it was able to have these quick corrections that we can identify very quickly, bring them in, have them listen to their calls, right? Or we scrape it. The management side will scrape it myself, look through it, bring them in for training and be like, how did the day go yesterday? And what happened from that, Shreya, was it went from me being like, hey, do you guys want to come in and have a listen to your calls, to the technicians calling me and be like, hey man, customer's super happy. We took care of everything they need. Would you listen to that call with me and let me know?
Yes,
And it went from
you're
they were afraid
right.
of it to now they're engaging in it and they're like, hey, can we listen to that call? And I'm like, yeah, let's listen to it as a group today, see where the wins were, see if there's anything we can correct or fix. So it was a tool
Right.
that became I hate this thing, it's spying on me, to hey, can you listen to my call? I think I did a really good job.
I want to give a special shout out to Rilla, the sales coaching AI software that holds the technicians accountable and gives them the support and guidance they need to maximize all the opportunities you spend your hard-earned money on. Our friends at Elite Call, the outbounding specialists, a service that brings wasted leads and brings them back to life to create more opportunity and keep the dispatch board full, integrate them right there into Service Titan for you.
I want to give special shout out to Grow Reviews, one of our sponsors, America's first platform to capture instant text and video reviews. If a picture is 1,000 words, a video is worth 1,000,000. Book a demo with Grow Reviews by visiting website www.growreviews.com, and you can get in touch with their sales reps to book a demo.
That's so perfect and solid, because that's what people should really expect. Is like they should expect, the technicians to have their objections about that. Like when I was in the field, we had objections about, those cameras, those dash cams for insurance purposes. We were like this communist, it's like communist Russia over here, including me, by like super dramatic about it, let alone that AI, I don't even know how we would react. So they should expect something like that. And then moving forward, is I do notice as well that the techs want you. They ask you to listen to it, because also you prove in your leadership that you're safe, to be honest with, right? Like that you're not just hounding them and telling them what they did wrong, but you're just offering training. Like, hey, you had some trouble with the maintenance call there. I think you might have forgotten the training. Let's just put you through maintenance call again, right? With the coaching. Yeah.
My job and the way I coach my team here is this. I'm like, guys, look, you're all adults. I'm an adult. I don't want to micromanage. That is not my job. I don't want to micromanage you. I don't want to ask you guys why you didn't fill out a form, why this didn't happen. It should be happening, right? And
Right.
sometimes you gotta break it to them in certain ways. Like, it was a couple of weeks ago. We had a technician. He was forgetting a form, and most people would just be like, hey, can you do the form? I just break it down to them as brutally honest as possible. Hey guys, put up your hands if you've ever missed a paycheck at ProStar when paychecks are supposed to come. No one puts their hands up. Okay, so what do you think would happen? And then when you guys don't pay, you ask me about it, I'm like, oh, my bad. I need to fill that up. It ain't gonna happen. So let's just stick to the basics. Let's make sure everything's getting done. My job is to micromanage you. My job is to find guys that are hungry, figure out what your potential is, take that potential, sprinkle a little bit of service MVP on it, a little bit of coaching, some Rilla, some call by call, let you guys explode, realize what the potential is for you, and then you guys go out there and you guys perform the best for our clients. Because at the end of the day, guys, you're on the truck, so you can all look at it like you're running your own company. I'm in the office, we're in the office. We send you the jobs, but who shows up is you guys. So realistically, each one of you is running your own business. Who is going to run this business today, make sure the client is taken care of with the highest quality, reliability, health and safety, right? You got to be honest, even when it's not popular, right? That's what we're taught. Right. That's our pure motive values. That's what our company culture is created on now. Go out there and provide the best service. In turn from that, we'll have customers for life. You guys are going to get paid well, right? You're going to have bonus pay and performance pay in it, but you're allowing the customer to see things they couldn't have. Because the last thing we want is for you guys to go have a look at their hot water tank, right? And you're like, oh yes, the gas valve. Yes, customer. Hey, my gas valve isn't working. Okay, yeah, you're correct. Your gas valve isn't heating. What we're going to do is we're going to basically just order you one. We're going to put it in this 15-year-old tank. And then what's going to happen is you're going to call us back in 4 weeks, and you're going to say, hey, my hot water tank isn't working.
And blame the company, for giving them bad service.
Yeah.
Totally.
Shreya was here. She looked at it. I paid you guys $800 and this isn't working. Was that the highest quality and reliability we could have gave to them? Or would it have been easier for us to go over what a new system would look like that's warranted for 12 years, where they don't have to think about anything, and we come back every single year, and we're basically doing the maintenance on it for them free, and they get in turn time to spend more time with their family. They don't have to worry about it. They can be out. They can take the kids to sports. Everything's looked after.
Yeah, yeah, I could honestly play this for like a morning sales meeting for the technicians. It's a perfect motivational speech. Like, if anyone listening, like, oh, I gotta tell my team that, just play this video of Brian and let him do it. He'll scare him a little bit. He's like a little scary, a little funny, a little nice. So I think that it'll be perfect. And I mean, bringing up the subject of like we went over your processes, and it just what floors me about you is how much you travel while running this business. It's like so odd. I've never seen anybody like party and live life to the fullest as much as I have you. And that may have something to do with these processes and your healthy net profit. So can you kind of go over how you're able to travel and have fun, while running the business?
So at first, when we first started, it wasn't like how it is now. I was so involved in working on the business, right? Where it was like, or sorry, in the business, where it was like, I'm like trying to figure out processes. So once we started getting our little processes worked out, our SOPs, what the office staff has to do, what the service technicians have to do, what service management has to do, call center, everything started kind of to flow a little bit. But what I did from there is I would tell my guys, I'm like, look, I'm going to be gone this month. Here's where I'm going to be gone. There's a conference here. I'm going to it. What my job is now is I need to go hang out with people way smarter than me, way more intelligent than me, that have built bigger businesses than us. I need to go there. I need to go network with them and absorb everything that they do better than us.
Hmm.
Figure out and identify our gaps. Because what I find is once you start making a little bit of money and net profit's healthy, it's like everyone's relaxed. I have a mentor I
Hmm.
work with, bi-weekly call every 2 weeks. And he's like, dude, out of the 14 companies I mentor, you guys are crushing net profit. You guys are crushing gross profit. How do you feel? And the conversation with Brody goes like this every week. I don't feel like I know what I'm doing, Brody. I don't feel like, how do you feel? He's like, put a feather in your cap. And I'm like, dude, I don't know. It doesn't feel like we're progressing. And he's like, and I've noticed that's a thing that's constant with me. It doesn't matter what level we get to. There's always the next process and the next person I can talk to and meet while I'm traveling, going out with, having a dinner with someone, picking their brain. There's something always better that's being created. So it was now it's like a thing I do every basically month and a half. I'm like, where's there a conference? It's here, I'm going to it. Where's there a conference? It's in Dallas, I'm going to it. And I go, I network my ass off. I talk to absolutely everyone. There's probably not one person that didn't meet me or I didn't talk to. I make sure it's like, hey, here's who I am. Nice to meet you. What do you do? Where are you from? Oh, I'm from Blue One. I'm from Service MVP. I'm from Rilla, right? I'm from this corporation. I'm this private equity. Cool. Get those conversations started. And not only that is I get their numbers and I call them all the time, right? I'm like
Hmm.
a cold call assassin when it comes to my network. How you guys doing? Checking off on you. You guys killing it? What do you need? What are you working on? What are you struggling with? Right? And I piece it all together and then we bring it back and I basically do an org structure with our company. And then we fix all of our gaps and we figure out, hey, here's this new thing, here's this new system, there's this new technology, and we get it going from there. Because the hardest thing for me was back in the day when I didn't know my numbers and I was just so stupid. And I'm like, oh, we're just running this business and everything. And I'm like, oh, I think everything's going good. And then you look at your numbers and you're like, oh man, you're like, we should be doing so much better. Then once I started going over the numbers, looking at things, and people are like, dude, you're killing me. Like you had a 24% net profit this month. And I'm like, oh, is that good? It's like, what's other people doing? And then you realize and talk to the companies, you're like, dude, we're absolutely smashing it. What would this
Yeah,
look like if we put 100 times more effort into this? Right? Just by picking
right.
up some processes.
Foot on the gas when you're going. It's like, let's do more of what's working instead of relaxing and staying the same or getting worse at that point. So that's super helpful, especially the fanatical networking. I can confirm this is 100% true about Brian. He's like the craziest networker I've ever seen. You make me feel like I'm some sort of like awkward introvert when I'm around you. I'm like, And I'm not, but like Brian is so extroverted and so good at talking to people that I'm like, why am I so socially awkward? And I start to like want to push myself more socially, you know? So anybody that's at these conventions should really be hanging out with Brian. Obviously, he'll welcome you into the circle really quickly. And that's super good feedback. Like on this podcast, that there's so many unique things that you've mentioned that I've never actually heard somebody say. Usually it's kind of people drilling in the same fundamentals, which is law and which is important, but you have such unique strategies to get to these points that you have at your company. And for people that like, let's say they're at a million or under a million and that like, you know, 4 million is their goal, or if they're 10 million and they're struggling heavily with net profit, what kind of advice would you give those people listening?
Network, because I wouldn't be anywhere where I am now without the network part. And it's funny because I look back and I remember when I joined my first real established network that had people in it that were just absolutely smashing it, like Ted Fox, Brody from Super Plumber, Bumblebee, like massive companies. And you're looking at them and you're starting out and you're like, hey man, I'm new to this group. And they're like, oh, what's your revenue? You're like, oh, I'm $1 million. And it's like, oh, what's your revenue? You're like, I'm 15 million. You're like, holy fuck, like how did you guys get to that? Like, what does it take to get to that? And all it took was just literally picking the brains of they were all you at one time, right? And this is what everyone forgets. Everyone sees social media and these companies post like, oh, we're smashing it, we're doing the best and everything. Well, how did they become that, right? Nobody remembers the journey when they started out and they're like a little bird in the nest and they just broke out of the egg and it's like they got their wings and it's like, here's my first technician I hired, right? And then like the eagle that's like soaring, looking for prey over the mountains, right? So it always comes down to networking, because the thing is, as soon as you get comfortable, and I tell my guys all the time, the minute I'm comfortable, that's when panic comes in. I don't care if our company is killing it and we're our net profit's great, our gross profit. That's when I'm at my weakest feeling for, are we moving forward in the right direction? Because there has to be something that we can do better. And it always, for me, the answer was picking up a phone, picking a brain of someone who's not in our market. And we were talking earlier about what is the difference between an American market and a Canadian market. And a lot of things that happen are when we see things on social media or we see conferences and it's like, well, that's very American and that's how the Americans do it. It won't work up in Canada. Right?
Yeah, that's every day I hear that because I more and more this year I met with so many Canadians all of a sudden, you know, more probably because you know everybody in the world, um, just interested in these processes. And those are always the objections, is that somehow human psychology is different in Canada. And I'm like, interesting. It must that your brain chemistry might be different in Canada. I don't know. So what are your thoughts on that? On, you know, if you're speaking to Canadians right now that are kind of stuck in that mindset, what would you say?
I would say get that out of your mind because it's just garbage. You need to clean your own filter, because what reality is that most of the trends in the service home industry start in the United States and they trickle down to Canada, right? So all it takes is one person to go to a conference and figure out that, hey, this company in Florida is absolutely smashing it and here's what they're doing. But it's like they're afraid, well, that won't work here. Well, of course it's not going to work here because you didn't try it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, but then all of a sudden people only want to try it when they're all of a sudden at a 3% net profit or they're taking a loss and they're like, oh, well, we better get on this and start looking at different ways. And it's like, why wouldn't you just do that from day one? Right. Like, yes, there's a lot of shiny, dangly things that are in front of here in the home service industry, but it's like, go pick one, figure it out, go talk to people that are doing it, right? Are they having success? What's been the struggle with it, right? Because I get a lot of questions sometimes with process that we have, like, Brian, does this work? I'm like, what do you mean does it work? Well, you know, we're looking into it. And it's like, but what do you mean by looking at, like, what do you want to get out of this is my question to them. Like, if you think that you're just going to sign up a process and it's going to work and you're already broken process that you have that you're not managing and you're mismanaging daily, then this new project won't work. If you think you can just sign up for a course and basically be like, oh, here, technicians, watch this video, and then they're going to gain something from it, it's not going to happen. You have to coach on it. You have to be on top of it. So nothing will ever work, just like we all know in business, unless we move forward. right? We
Just
can't
commit to something, right? Like commit you like with Service MVP is like you committed before you even proved the system to yourself. And that's why the system worked is because you committed to it. So you just have a lot of like whatever, what could I lose? I'm just going to commit to this 100%. I'm going to try everything that I see and then I'll judge it, right? And then
yeah.
tell you if it works or not. That's
What's what
fair.
Trey, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? I'm going to be back in the exact same spot, right? Like
That's true.
you're
That's
telling me if
true.
I go to a conference with 300 people that are running companies that are absolutely crushing it, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to go introduce myself and say, hey, man, my name's Brian. I'm from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I have a service company. Here's what I'm doing. I'd really love to chat with you about it. What they're going to say no. It doesn't
Right.
work like that. They're going to say yes. But some people are
Yeah.
going to be a little bit introvert and they're not going to be the one to come up to you. I will find you. I will go
Yes.
research it and figure it out, right? And it's as simple as that. It sounds I make it sound so easy, but it is literally that easy. It's go have a conversation, right? People talk about in their own organizations, like go out, shake hands, go meet people. Do the same thing. I didn't join a network to get SOP processes. I joined a network to talk to other people that were in my position that have climbed the mountain, found their way, and that's what I need to do, right? So it's like you can't be afraid to put yourself out there. What's the worst thing that's gonna happen? Sorry, man. You know what? Actually, I'm leaving in an hour and I don't have a flight. Dude, can I get your number? Cool. I'll call you when you land. Right? I'll blow up your phone when you land.
Awesome. Yeah, we all know that owners love teaching, especially to go through all that pain to see some success. It feels so good to pass it on to people. They always answer the phone. I too have never had an issue with reaching out to people and them not helping me. Like they actually go like way too far above and beyond to give me all their secret processes, all their tips and everything. So I totally agree. And I think a perfect note to end on would be how can people reach out to you so that you could be that person to them, basically?
100%. I'll just throw it out there right now. 1-403-880-7554. Call me anytime. Leave a voicemail, text message, or you can reach me at brian@prostarplumbing.ca. I will talk to anyone who calls me, right? I will try to give them my best advice, what my struggles were, what I'm currently struggling on. I'm an open book. I don't keep anything. I don't make it seem like, oh, hey, we're this great, big, successful company. We have our failures daily that we work on to fix, right? We have our wins daily that we're good at, but nothing is perfect. The only thing that's going to be perfect is putting yourself out there, allowing people to know that you're not perfect, and you're looking to correct that, find the gaps, identify them. And by doing that, it's talking to other people. Because if we all just ran a company and no one talked about each other, we wouldn't have all these processes. And I can easily call someone up and be like, my call center's weak. They're like, here's 20 scripts. Call the next week. Here's 20 scripts. Have you done this? Have you done that? And it's like, oh man, I didn't think about that. So it's easily corrected. So people forget the big thing is communication is key. It's the number 4 thing that's literally on my 8 laws of double-digit profit, right? Communicate in rhythm, right? Let's just make sure we're talking, right? I want to know what's going on in the day. I want to know what you guys, what's going on? How's this customer? How's this technician? What are we lacking? What did we forget, right? It's the number 1 key is to communicate with your team, identify what's going on, and then reach out to people that are way, way smarter than you.
Solid. Yeah, that's why I reached out to you, Brian, because I know you're way, way smarter than me.
Yeah.
You are. But so anyone listening, lastly, for obviously, thank you, Brian, for being so open per usual with everybody and sharing your contact information. That's huge. Anybody listening, if you're looking for a mentor, you just got one from a podcast. So if you don't call, then I guess that's where you're at right now. If you do call, then you're ready to just move forward and put your pride aside and ask for some help. So I hope this was helpful to all the listeners. Thank you to everybody that supported us for so long with this podcast. And thanks again, Brian, for so much value today.
No problem, Shreya. Thanks for having me on.
All right.